We're going to talk about my least favorite topic today. It's patience, and the patience that we need to cultivate as we go on this journey of being a creative. And I think patience is a conversation that we all need to have wherever we are at on this journey, whether we want to go pro, whether we are already pro, whether we are incredibly successful traditionally as a creative, whether we only want this as a private practice, whether we have no idea what the fuck we're doing, whether we're just curiously playing and making art with no real idea where it's going. Like, patience is always needed on this journey. And as like a deeply impatient person, this has been one of the hardest journeys for me. My relationship with patience, my relationship with trust has been incredibly tense. And I think a lot of the pain that I've been in over the last 10 years has been because I've really struggled to be patient. So before we go into all the different ways we need to cultivate patience and how we cultivate patience, I just want to talk to anyone who feels like patience isn't an option for you right now, because that's how I felt. All I wanted to do was tell stories and write and create for a living. And instead I was in a financial services job that I fucking hated. I was like a PA for a load of like insurance and like superannuation people, getting milk, making them smoothies. It was horrible for me as a creative. It was horrible. I was, personal training, getting up at 4 or 5 a.m. Again, not how I function well. I was nannying a really beautiful, challenging child. I was waitressing, a terrible waitress. Like, I was doing all these jobs that I hated, trying to build up my career as a writer on the side. And I was building up my career as a writer on the side. But when I was in those moments, I felt so deeply impatient because to me, my life was intolerable. And to have to dedicate so much time to these jobs that I fucking hated was intolerable. But I kept being told by people, oh, you have to be so patient. You have to be so patient. This is such a long game. It might take you decades. This book probably won't make it. I was being told again and again and again, be patient. And when I was in those conversations, I felt deeply misheard. I felt disrespected, and I felt completely unseen because I was in so much pain. And I was like, how am I meant to wake up every day and dedicate my lives to these jobs, so many hours of my lives to these jobs that hurt me? I felt like I was like spiritually decaying in these jobs. And so to be told to just be patient felt really disrespectful. And so I just want to acknowledge that if you are in a situation like that, it might not look exactly like mine. It will look different and unique to you. But if you are in a situation like that where being told to be patient feels intolerable, like, I see you. I'm so sorry you're navigating this. I'm so sorry if you just feel stagnant and like you're going nowhere and like you've already been so patient and nothing has happened. I'm so sorry that you are moving through this. I see you. I have been where you are. I just want to validate you. It is so fucking difficult to sit in that space when it feels like there is no momentum. I want to really gently remind you that if you are creating, every time you create, every time you make art, you are propelling your life forward. You are not stagnant. Stuff is happening and you may not understand what is going on and how it is that your creative journey is moving on, but it is. If you are showing up somewhat consistently, creating, sharing in some way, you are propelling your life forward. And I'm so sorry that it isn't where you want it to be right now, but stuff is happening. Stuff was happening for me in ways I could never comprehend, even when I felt like nothing was happening and I was so stagnant and I was just like so lost. Magic was brewing for me, and it is only now that I'm really fucking feeling that magic, and I'm so indebted to that past and impatient version of myself who just sat through it, who just allowed it all to happen. So if you're feeling really impatient, I really see you, and I really love you, and I'm really proud of you. But I want to invite you to have a relationship with patience, because I think it makes this creative journey so much easier, so much smoother. It allows us to focus on the art and the creativity rather than being so fucking panicked that we're not getting what we want right now. There are so many different spaces in which we need patience. And the first one I think is we need patience with our own like creative abilities, particularly when we're beginning. We live in a culture that really doesn't understand why someone would do something they're not that good at. So when we pick up a new craft, when we are in the beginning or learning phase of being an artist, like, people don't understand why you're doing it. If you're not good yet, what's the point? But we need a profound patience with us as we develop our skills. Like, we're allowed to be shit at things. We're allowed to want to develop our skills and things. And this is such a sacred and exciting time for us. You deserve a huge amount of patience as you navigate the beginning stage. It's going to take time. You're going to figure out a lot of stuff on the way, but allow yourself to have that bumbling start as you have no idea what to do. I'm just going to have a quick wee break. Sorry, I had no idea how busting I was until I pressed play. I think that as we learn to be patient with ourselves during that beginning phase, we think that, okay, like once I get over this really steep learning curve, then I can just go, go, go. But the funny thing is that when we have that patience with ourselves at the beginning, that's a skill that we are going to use throughout all of our creative career, because we're always going to want to get a little bit better. We're always going to have periods of our creative journey where suddenly we fucking suck again. So that patience with ourselves and that patience with our own creative ability is so necessary, not just for the beginning, but for our whole creative careers. And if we don't have that patience, we'll never get better. And if we push ourselves in and we have very low tolerance for being shit at our craft, we're going to cock block ourselves from our creative brilliance. We're going to hold back our potential. We need to have the compassion that we would have with a small child who is learning to paint, praising them. Wow, that's a really good job, even if it really kind of isn't. I'm so proud of you for just expressing yourself in that way. Let yourself play, have patience with yourself throughout all of these learning curves that we will have again and again and again throughout our creative careers. Again, this is not something that is exclusive to being a beginner. We will suck a lot throughout our whole journey, and it's not something that we can really avoid. I'm just scrolling through my notes. Being patient with growing an audience. This is a really huge one. If you are someone who wants to connect with other people with your art, growing an audience should take a long time. It has taken me 10 years to grow a beautiful audience. Probably took me around 5 years for me to grow an audience that allowed me to, no, maybe a bit longer, maybe 6 or 7 years before I was able to have that audience support me financially. But it's been extremely steady growth for about 10 years. And that slowness and the patience that I had to have as I slowly grew this audience was crucial, because when we are patient with growing an audience, we are developing trust. We are developing relationships with our potential audience. If we rush this, we may get more followers on Instagram. We may seem like we have a very large audience, but if we rush it and if we aren't patient with it, we often have a community of people who aren't that interested in us. I see impatient creatives try and build an audience by going viral, and they might get, hundreds of thousands of followers from that one viral reel, but they're not in relationship with you or your art. Whereas building something slower over time and not constantly being in pursuit of virality allows for us a much more healthy and long-term relationship with audience. We're building trust, and trust takes time. And I think that people forget that. It's consistency, it's showing up for your potential audience, it's showing them that you are there, that your art is there for them, it's showing that you have, a plethora of different ways that you can show up. It takes a long time for you to build this trust and this relationship with audience. People forget that. People try and take shortcuts that I really think sells you and your art short. Again, it's incredibly painful to be told this, because perhaps you really just need and want the audience now, and I see you if that is you. You have an incredible audience out there waiting for you. They want your art, they need your art, and your art is going to impact them in ways that they've never been impacted before. It's going to be profound for these people. But finding them and building relationships with them takes time, and it is worth taking the time. It's a really hard one, and I know so many people are so tired of social media, and I see you. If you're exhausted of that platform or these platforms, I see you. But it is so worth taking the time to build a relationship with your audience like you would build a relationship with another human being in real life. We need to be patient with the undulating ebbs and flows of this journey, because it fucking ebbs and flows, and it ebbs and flows in so many ways. We need patience as we ebb and flow with energy. Sometimes we're just not going to have a lot of energy to create. We're going to be creating in abundance, and then we're not going to be creating at all. Can you be patient with how this comes and goes? Can you be patient with how your audience is fluctuating? I think I was posted something about this a few months ago. I lost 20,000 followers recently, just over time, over a few months. This happens. We connect, and then we stop connecting, and it just comes in waves. We think this journey should be super linear, and it isn't. And are you going to have the patience and the trust to know that that's okay? This is just what it happens. It's incredibly hard for me, seeing this kind of strange up and down, and it also happens with finances. We earn some money sometimes, and we earn more, then we earn less. And can I be patient with that? And I think the question really is can I trust that when we're in those troughs of audience or energy or enthusiasm or finances? Can I say, it's okay, these troughs happen, these ebbs happen. I know I'm safe in them. We need a huge amount of patience for that. Gatekeepers. If you, as the artist, choose to engage, and it is a choice, with gatekeepers, and by gatekeepers, I mean publishing houses, production companies, casting agents, any institutional artist business, we require wild amounts of patience, because they work at a pace which is nearly always a lot slower than we would desire. We're going to need patience with rejection, with form emails. We're going to need patience from being just completely ignored. You're going to need patience with contracts, with communication, with even your product coming out. I can get my novels out very quickly if I self-publish them, but it will be years if I choose to go through a publishing house. There's patience that is really required if we engage in these bigger businesses, because it just takes longer. And I think a lot of creatives can really get themselves incredibly worked up when we're in relationship with these institutions, because we just, come on, hurry up. And it feels like we're just like fucking smacking our head against a brick wall, when we just need to exhale and realize that whatever, they need to do what they need to do. I need to focus on my art. Like, I got other stuff to do. I've got my next book to write. I've got my next project to focus on. I'm not saying that we are passive in this relationship. I think when we choose to pursue relationships with gatekeepers, often we need to be really tenacious and we need to reapply and send reminders. We need to do all that, but then we need to let it go and be patient. Just be like, whatever, you know, I've done my job. I'll wait for you. I'm going to work on my art instead, because that's where my energy needs to go. Patient creatives are happier creatives. James texted me again. Whatever. If he's locked outside, he's locked outside. Patient creatives are happier creatives. If you're not expecting a response from the gatekeepers tomorrow after you've submitted your book in today, you can just become so much more process driven. Instead of constantly checking your inbox, you're constantly with your art, making your art, writing the next book, improving your skills, indulging in what it is that you're good at, rather than constantly just waiting, surrendering your power to these institutions that often don't really care about you that much. I think patience is also important in this case because luck favors the patient, and impatience often takes us out of the game, and luck is a really big part of these gatekeeping games that we play, because so much of it is luck. There's just such a large amount of creatives trying to apply to these limited spaces, so we need luck a lot of the time. Like, yes, we can be incredible at our job and we can be tenacious, but luck often needs to play a part in this particular game, and luck favors the patient. So if you are willing to stick around the longest, your chances of succeeding in this space are just so much higher. Okay, I want to talk about how we cultivate patience. I would still say I'm not a very patient person. I have too much fire and too much ambition, and I love to do. Like, as soon as I have an idea, I want to enact on it, and I'm a very active person. I just love to create, I love to make, I love to move. I love the feeling of momentum so much that sometimes I think it's unhealthy and I have to take it to my therapist. So for me, patience is a really big problem, and how I've managed to sit back into patience is by improving my relationship to trust. And so for me, and I invite maybe that this is something that could work for you, instead of like constantly saying, Amy, just be patient, I ask myself to trust. I trust that I'm gonna show up every day for my art. I trust that this is all unfolding exactly as it is meant to, even if I do not understand it right now. I trust that there is magic waiting in the wings. I trust that I am only getting better and better as a writer. I trust that there is an audience out there who are waiting for my work. I trust that this audience is only going to grow. I cultivate trust, and that lets me exhale. It lets me focus on the art, because I don't need to be trying to micromanage every aspect of my creative career, because I trust that my job is to create and to share my creations, and that's all I got to do. I can let everything else unfold on its own, and this just allows me a patience that is really very profound for me, and very peaceful and very grounding. And whereas for a long time I felt like I was treading water, like desperately, please see me, please notice me, please, you know, this book needs to be out there, and like it was so exhausting. My energy was all up here. Like, when I trust, it's like deep, like in my pelvis. It'll unfold. It's gonna happen. I am meant to be doing this. You are meant to be doing this. I feel so on the path. I trust that all I really have to do is put one foot in front of the other. It's been working for me for 10 years. Even when I felt like I was completely in the dark, completely, doing it wrong, I was putting one foot in front of the other, and I was doing it entirely right. I was completely on the path the entire time. So this sense of trust, it grounds me in patience, and it gives me space to create, space to make things. And I think it is much easier for me now, because I am in a place where I get to create full time, to have this trust and to have this patience. And again, that's why I had that part at the beginning, which is, this is much harder game for those of you who are not in a space that you love right now. I'm fortunate enough to be in a life right now, to be doing what I love, and to be sitting in gratitude every morning for this incredible, enchanted, creative life that I'm leading. So, trust is easier for me now. But this trust was built all the way through from the beginning. From my journals, from the very start of this, it was, I trust that I'm meant to be writing. I trust that this is all unfolding as it will. I trust that this is going to happen. I trust that this is what I'm meant to be doing. I was just repeating it until it sunk in, until it knitted into like my very essence and became true, and the trust became true. I simply must create, share, and wait and see what happens. It takes so much pressure off. So my darling patient and impatient creatives, I'm so proud of us. I'm proud of us for showing up. You are meant to be doing this. I trust that you are on the path, and I am so proud of us. Thank you for supporting this channel. Thank you for liking, for commenting. Those two things are really big for me as I grow this little space on YouTube. I'm so grateful.